being a solopreneur would be a whole other beast. And I feel for those of you out there who are solopreneurs, that is so challenging. I mean, this is already hard in itself, and that has to be so challenging to do it solo. But I feel very grateful. I have my brother and I have his partner Jane. So my background, like we said, is in theater. So for me, it's all about the storytelling, the connection, the helping people build relationships. I've done a lot of work in social media because of those things. I'm comfortable being the face. I also happen to be type A, so I'm very organized and can make sure all the tasks get done and keep everything moving and going. And then my brother, his background is actually in business and in sports marketing. So he was able to do a lot of the initial, the IP, making sure we have our IP together, making sure our LLC is formed correctly, making sure we get a decent lawyer that we can afford, and, doing all of the like business formation things that, I didn't know when we were first starting. And then Jane, she's a product designer. So she is the one who actually puts together the design and can do all the sketching and put together, the functionality of how the game can work. And so all of those things are super important, and I'm not a designer, I don't have a business background, but I have people who do. And so when we have like really defined roles, it makes everything flow easier.
Welcome to another episode of Everything Intellectual Property. Today, we have a very special guest with us. This person has created card games that inspires awkward conversations. Please help me welcome the co-founder and president of Awkward Games, Brittane Rowe. How is it going, Brittane?
Hello, how are you? Thanks for having me on today.
Oh, for sure. And I was telling you before offline, excited about this one for a number of reasons, but you just kind of amazed that we grew up literally 30 minutes apart. Me from Muskegon, Michigan, you from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Obviously, people who watch Shark Tank, which we'll get off into a little later, know that you reside in the great state of New York now, based on what you're doing. So I don't know. I always think that's cool when I kind of run into somebody who's doing some of the things that you're doing, and it's like, man, we're effectively neighbors growing up.
Oh, right. How wild. And I saw that you went to Michigan State, which is also my alma mater. So go green.
Oh, right. There you go. So in that, like you said, so that was like, oh, this is definitely meant to be, just because not only growing up, 30 minutes apart, but then also going to the same university at Michigan State. They're a big part of my life, especially with undergrad and going to law school there. So I'm like a double Spartan with going to undergrad and law school. So, oh, for sure. Well, Michigan State has definitely helped me out in a lot of ways. So I guess maybe getting off into it for the audience who's kind of maybe listening to this on podcasts, or I guess to the extent that they're watching this on video as well, and they may be kind of not understanding what Awkward Games is or what it kind of does. Can you kind of describe the product and what it is that you kind of provide?
Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me on again. My name is Brittany, and I'm based in New York City. And I started a company called Awkward Games with my brother Brandon and his soon-to-be wife Jane, that back in 2020. So it was the period where we were in quarantine and we were just trying to really connect with one another and started having really amazing conversations about a billion different topics. And we put those conversations on paper and shared it with a bunch of our friends. And that is kind of how Awkward Games began. So it was all about trying to help provide connection, provide opportunities for people to build relationship and just have fun, put your phone down and just kind of enjoy, that one-on-one in real life connection point. And so that was how everything started. So right now we create conversation card games, party games, social games to help people connect. We of course have our game Hella Awkward, which you see here in the back. And then we have our brand new game, Build-A-Bay, which we just launched a few weeks ago. And then we're just working on some other fun new games that will be coming later on in the year.
Nice. So would you say that the Hella Awkward, is that maybe kind of the flagship product? Hey, look, when you were talking or introduced Build-A-Bay on Shark Tank, I'm like, I really love that game. I think that game is going to be a killer. But it's like Hella Awkward. Is that kind of more so the flagship or the game that a lot of people, most people buy?
Exactly. Yeah. Hella Awkward is our flagship. That's the game that we launched with. So that is near and dear to our hearts. And that really just kind of encapsulates the whole mission of like wanting to help people build connection. And that game is available at Target and Walmart and Amazon. And then Build-A-Bay is our new game. It's so much fun. It's more about like competitive party, get your girls together and have some time to like figure out who your perfect person is, what does your perfect bay actually look like? And you're competing with your friends to find whoever has the best bay in the end. So it's a
Look at
great time.
and this is interesting because as I was kind of thinking about building a bay or the build a bay game and kind of preparing for this interview, I was thinking to myself, okay, obviously I know build a bay is going to be a hit among women, but can men also kind of find value in build a bay, or is that kind of specifically for women?
No, guys can definitely play. Of course, I made this with my brother, so he loves to play. I also do it with my husband. He loves to play. I've had game nights at my house with all our mixed group of friends, and we all are playing, and it's definitely enjoyable by everyone. So that's the beauty of it, is you can really challenge yourself to say, okay, what are the traits that I really look for? What are the red flags? What do I need to steer away from? And your friends, they know you, they know your dating history. So they're judging you all along the way and say, wait, you wouldn't actually date that kind of a person. Like, I know you. So it's so much fun for everybody, for sure.
So then let me ask you this: have you ran into a situation playing build a bay among kind of friends and their kind of couples or spouses, and I guess their kind of final form not being who they're with, and it being some tension at that point?
Yeah. Definitely. That's where the awkward part comes in. Because you'll build your bay and then you're like, oh, is this what you wish I was doing? So you definitely have some awkwardness going on, but that just adds to the fun for sure.
No, that's yeah. No, actually, I'm gonna have to get that. This sounds interesting, and no, that and I have a buddy who stays around the corner from me here in the Detroit metro area, and he's always kind of throwing events. Him and his wife for Christmas and Halloween and things like that, and they're playing card games. And yeah, I have to kind of introduce your card games to the
Yes.
staff with them because they're definitely amongst like family and friends. There's always a group of us at the table, and we're playing different card games. So yeah, this would be great for them.
That is perfect for that. Any sort of game night, the pregame, the dinner party, it's like the perfect addition to any of those get-togethers for sure.
Nice, nice, nice. So let me ask you this, because I actually just came out with the ebook a couple weeks ago, and it's the title is Got IP, so it's essentially kind of running down from the ideal phase all the way to monetizing off your IP. I've interviewed over 100 guests at this point, many of which have been on Shark Tank. And I guess the first two chapters of that book is one is I have an ideal, and two is getting feedback. It seems like you had talked about you actually when you and your brother and his fiance was kind of writing ideas and things like that on the uh on paper or whatever the case. Maybe you guys got feedback from or maybe friends and family. How was that feedback process? Because I think it's important when you are trying to come up with something, card game, a widget, whatever the case may be, to get feedback from others who's going to be honest with you and what tell you whether or not you have a zero or you have something. So how was that feedback process? Because I'm interested in it.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a huge part of the process. We wanted to see, if our game reminded people of anything, would you actually pay for this? Is this something you would buy? Is this something you would enjoy? Which questions did you resonate with? Which ones sparked great conversations? Which ones did you say we skipped and it was boring or it was too awkward? So we got a lot of great feedback that we captured from our friends and our family, and we told them we want the real. So we sent out, like a Google kind of like feedback form so they could have like anonymous, open, honest feedback so they could really give us the real. And we told them, we really want to know what you guys think and how you're enjoying it, how you're playing it, and what you think this could be essentially. And so we collected a lot of feedback and sent it out to a bunch of our friends, a bunch of our family, colleagues, etc. And this was all during the COVID period. So people had time and people were willing to play and give us their time in that way, which was so helpful. And we rethought, the structure of the game. We scrapped we have 4 categories in our game. So there was other categories that we scrapped because we were like, a lot of people are resonating with that. We changed, how the gameplay works. We were thinking of making it more competitive. And in the end, we thought, no, this really is just about opening up and about conversation. So feedback was major, and it was super helpful in how we were able to kind of reshape and form our game into what it is now.
Nice, nice, nice. Were you at all maybe kind of timid or like, okay, we're doing this in a COVID pandemic and so much uncertainty in terms of trying to start a business or come out with a product? Did that kind of factor in? Because another part that you can have everything, and I kind of talk about this also in the ebook, where you can have a good product, you can have people willing to give you money for it, you can have everything right, so to speak. But at the end of the day, I talk about you have to execute. That's it can you can have the best thing, but if you are not willing to execute or don't execute or put forth the effort, then none of this matters anyway. So was that kind of part of it? I don't want to say scary. I think that's the wrong word, but was that in that uncertainty kind of based on the time of it being COVID? Did that kind of play a part in things?
It did play a part into it, but actually in a positive way, because if it weren't for COVID, we never would have had the time to do it.
That's
Like
true.
there's no chance, like now that we're back in, the open world, everyone's traveling, people are busy, I can try to barely get in touch with, my family members now. People are so busy with work. People are traveling off, trying to do
Yeah.
vacations, planning
Yeah.
summer travel. Now getting people to have like dedicated one-on-one time, you got to put in the work and reach out and set calendar dates and all of these things. But during COVID, we had so much time to really invest into creating this. And for me, I was unemployed at that time. So I was working in theater and then in restaurants. And so all of the industries I was a part of before were shut down. So I was on unemployment. And so having that time to really just say, okay, I'm going to execute, our vision for this was a major key. And it would not have been able to happen if we didn't have that dedicated
For sure.
quarantine.
Oh, and so I have maybe a 7-year-old daughter, and I mean I already can tell just kind of based on how just seeing her kind of operate. She's a creative. I'm not sure whether or not she's going to kind of go to art school or whatever the case might be, but I can see her being. She's very creative. She come up with a song on the spot. She can 6, 7 years old. She can draw. So she has this kind of creative feeling. I'm not sure where she get it from because I mean again I'm kind of maybe I have it and I'm just kind of have to pull it out of myself, but I wasn't that growing up. I was always more so, my background was mechanical engineering. So I was almost technical, always
Yeah,
technical,
yeah,
math and science and all those things. And the reason I'm kind of saying all this is because kind of you going to Michigan State, and having that artistic background. Did you ever think that you would be kind of running a company again? Obviously, you kind of like New York Broadway theatrics. You knew that was going to be a part of your story. But
right.
have you ever said, okay, an entrepreneur? Was that something that you kind of thought about at all, or kind of but for the COVID pandemic, it probably would have never happened?
Yeah, it was definitely not on my bingo card for my life at all. I would definitely say that, being an actor, there are so many aspects of entrepreneurialness. You are hustling, you're auditioning constantly, you're pitching yourself, you're following up, you're making connections. So there were a lot of skills that I realized that I had as I was starting this business. And there were a lot of things that I realized I'm going to have to learn. And so I joined a lot of accelerator groups, a lot of, like small, founder focus groups. And during that time, everything was on Zoom. So I would just, meet with different people to try and learn, try to build my little founder network of folks where I could kind of ask a billion questions as we were kind of in the early stages of building this. And that was so helpful because there's a lot that you have to figure out. You're figuring it out as you go. And so no, I was not dreaming of, starting a business or being a business owner. But once we had this organic idea, to kind of share these conversations and share the method of connection with other folks, it just felt like, oh, we have to do this. We have to give it a proper shot. So I was willing to do whatever it was going to take to get it done, basically. And I'm a Capricorn eldest daughter, type A. So one thing about me, if I'm going to do it, it's going to get done.
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely see that in you. So I guess would you say that you maybe I don't want to say regret that again regret is a bad word. Are you thankful that kind of things played out the way they did? Just because you've been able to be a business owner, to kind of create a card game that's bought by so many households. Or you like, man, some people they say, would you do it all over again? They like, man, all that work I had to go through, probably not. Are you one of those people that fall into the camp of yes, I would do it all over again if I had to, or I'm not sure?
No, I totally would. I'm glad everything happened as it did. It's been an amazing journey. I feel like we've been so lucky that we've had so much amazing support. And I think between me, my brother, and Jane, like we just have such great supportive families and friends that have just been there rocking with us from day one, who've been telling us, like, you guys, we have to do this. This is so amazing. What like there are models, like our friend is our model on our website. We have friends who help set up ads for us. We have friends who've connected us to retailers and say, "Oh, I know this person who owns a boutique, and you should put it." Like we've had so many amazing people that have supported us along the way. So I would 100% do it again. Was it hard? Yes, it's still hard. Is there times where I'm like, I have no clue what's going to happen? Of course, but ultimately it's been such an amazing journey and I just feel so supported in it and I've learned so much from doing it.
No, and again, that's one of the things I love about just kind of entrepreneurship, starting a business, because it's not a one size fits all model. Again,
Yeah.
you're coming from a theater, and then you kind of are entrepreneur. You have people that are lawyers or kind of whatever the field may be, and kind of become entrepreneurs. And again, like I said, that's why I like a light. It's not a one size fits
Right.
all model.
Exactly.
How
Yeah.
walks of life can kind of jump into entrepreneurship and be successful at it. And again, I may get some flack for saying this, but again, this is I always tell people, man, it's not 30 years ago when you're going to kind of do a job for that company for 30 years, kind of right off to the sunset with a pension. You
Right.
have things like COVID, or it seems like companies laying off uh, left and right, or at least every year you're hearing about layoffs to the point where it's like, okay, you probably should have something else going on, kind of just in case, or such that you're not kind of hit hard, to the extent that that layoff bug, whatever, comes knocking at your door. So it's almost, in other words, I'm saying all that to say that it seems like entrepreneurship in this day and age is almost a must, as opposed to
Mhm.
something that you can kind of, maybe do or not
Yeah.
have to think about.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a good point. And I think it definitely is nice to have something of your own that you can have full agency over and really create it exactly how you would want to create it and create the culture of the company how you would and create products that you feel passionate about. I think there's something beautiful about that. I know it's not for everybody, I totally get it. It's a lot of work and it all depends on you to get it done. If you want to pay your bills, you have to put that work in to make sure it happens. So there's a lot of pressure that it can, take, but it's worth it if there's something that you feel passionate about and it's just been like on your mind, nagging at you forever, like you have to give it a try. You have to give it a
For
go.
sure, for sure. And again, even if you're not, I guess, what they call it, an extrovert or entrepreneur. I think my buddy was telling me something. He's a really smart guy. We met at Michigan State
Hmm.
uh, in engineering school, and he has more of an introverted personality. And I think, to be honest with you, I'm an introvert. I just can kind of be extroverted at times. But he was saying something about, I think, an entrepreneur or something, where you're not necessarily the main person, but you're kind of working with the main person, who's kind of maybe more or less the face, and then you're kind of like the brains behind it. I think of like maybe a Steve Jobs and a Steve Wozniak with Apple, where Steve
Yeah.
Jobs kind of get all the credit, and it was like the face of the
Face of
company, but
everything, right?
Wozniak was kind of doing things in the background and making things go on the tech
Yeah.
side. So it seems like, kind of maybe to your point, even though it's not for everybody, it seems like almost kind of tagging along with somebody who can kind of be the face and kind of put
Mhm.
themselves out there and is okay with that, and then you kind of maybe working kind of behind the scenes. It seems like
Totally.
kind of something that can
Yeah.
still work out.
Everyone has their role, like I kind of operate as the face of the company and I also operate it on a day-to-day basis. But I have two other co-founders they have their roles that they also do behind the scenes to make sure that things continue to keep rolling, which are super important. And I don't know how to do those things. So,
No,
we need each other.
and I think that was a good segue, because I was going to ask you about partners and kind of, being able to team up with somebody that
Mhm.
can kind of have a level of expertise in an area that is not your level of expertise. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of that? Because again, you're kind of living proof of that, where you have kind of three co-founders with your brother
Yeah.
and then this fiance, and seems like that's kind of working out well, as opposed to maybe if you were trying to go at this all by yourself, and I would imagine that can feel overwhelming,
Yeah.
and maybe you don't do it at that point, even though you got the time, because it's so overwhelming. So can you talk a little bit about the importance of maybe partners and finding the right partners that kind of balance you out and provide value in areas that you may be not as proficient in?
Yeah, being a solopreneur would be a whole other beast. And I feel for those of you out there who are solopreneurs, that is so challenging. I mean, this is already hard in itself, and that has to be so challenging to do it solo. But I feel very grateful. I have my brother and I have his partner Jane. So my background, like we said, is in theater. So for me, it's all about the storytelling, the connection, the helping people build relationships. I've done a lot of work in social media because of those things. I'm comfortable being the face. I also happen to be type A, so I'm very organized and can make sure all the tasks get done and keep everything moving and going. And then my brother, his background is actually in business and in sports marketing. So he was able to do a lot of the initial, like, the IP, making sure we have our IP together, making sure our LLC is formed correctly, making sure we get a decent lawyer that we can afford, and, doing all of the like business formation things that, I didn't know when we were first starting. And then Jane, she's a product designer. So she is the one who actually puts together the design and can do all the sketching and put together, the functionality of how the game can work. And so all of those things are super important, and I'm not a designer, I don't have a business background, but I have people who do. And so when we have like really defined roles, it makes everything flow easier because we know, great, I got this. Great. Britt's gonna go do that. Great. Jane's gonna go work on that. And that then we can come back together and say, okay, where do we need help? Where do we need to support? What are we still missing? Where we need to hire somebody else to help do X, Y, and Z. And then it can just all come together and be such a good blend. So he's a great number.
Yeah, no, and again, I heard this from, and I'm not sure where I heard this from, but they like odd numbers. So, they don't necessarily, like you said, solopreneur, even though it's one person, that's an odd number. It can be kind of a beast in and of itself. They don't, in terms of, maybe it's investors or whatever the case may be, they don't necessarily like two co-founders just because it can be, okay, who's going to make the decision? If you guys are both close to a decision, kind of a decision
Right.
that kind of made at that point. It seems like the exception to that is maybe the husband and the wife duo. It seems like that kind of always kind of at least a little better. But then three, it seems like that's kind of maybe the preferred number, just because, okay, if you have a majority vote, then a decision is going to get made because two people are going to lean one way and one person. Hopefully everybody's unanimous, but to the extent that one person is against it, then it's, it's still a vote where it's not, okay, one person on that side and one person on the other side. So yeah, it seems like kind of three is worked out. And especially in your case, it seems like since everybody has those defined roles, you guys are not stepping on each other's toes because you're not necessarily trying to go into product design because that's not your space, for business and marketing. That's not
that. And of course, we all have thoughts about it. We can have an emotional response to something that she would design and say, "Oh, I love this," or "What if we tweak this color this way?" And we always send it to people that we trust to also get feedback from them and say, "Okay, which of these three options do you feel the most connected to?" Something along those lines. So it's always good to have other feedback.
Yep.
But she leads it. I trust her vision. I love what she makes. We've had such good feedback from other folks and from our retailers. People love it. They love seeing it on the shelf. So I'm like, great, whatever Jane says, I trust it. So, so having that trust in folks is also really important to make sure, you believe in their vision too. And there's alignment there.
Absolutely. No, I definitely agree with that. So then kind of moving on to the IP, I know you mentioned it earlier. Is that something that people don't kind of really know that? And I kind of talked to you earlier about Hamilton and kind of falling in love with that show once I went to go see it. That is an element of IP when you have kind of some type of this routine, and that's a choreograph, which you can get a copyright on. But kind of how much did you know, as well as your other co-founders, know about intellectual property as you guys were going through that process? Because it seems like it's maybe nothing from a patentable standpoint there, but maybe some copyright stuff, maybe some trademark stuff that you guys were looking to protect. So how much of that did you guys know about of IP going into the business?
I mean, for me, I didn't know much about it. I knew that we needed some sort of protection, obviously, but thankfully my brother was able to find a lawyer who did know and told us, yeah, this is what you're going to need. For us, it's copyright and trademarking. So you're not able to like trademark the gameplay, but you can obviously trademark, your design and then your brand colors, your brand font, your name, that sort of thing. So all of those things that we got taken care of for Hella Awkward very early on, and then we're in the process for Build a Bay currently. So there's no patents that we have to deal with because everything is very kind of standard in the game making.
Yep.
But yeah, that was something that we had to figure out, and that's just business. You're figuring out things as you go, and you're learning things that you need along the way, and you have to you hire the people that you need to help go through that process so that you don't mess it up, because IP that's important, right? You need to have it done correctly. You need to file it properly, and having someone who can support you in that is very needed for sure.
No, and I loved everything that you just said, especially talking about the importance of it. And again, people maybe don't think, okay, what is there to protect over a card game? But like you said, you get copyrights on a number of things, from the pictures, to the extent that you use in pictures, to the actual kind of words,
Hmm.
to the extent trademark, whatever branding, the awkward games, all that is, you know, a part of the brand, which can be protectable. Heck, you can even get to the extent that your game is color dependent. Think of like a UPS with their trucks. You can get
Right.
a trademark on a color. So and all that becomes important to kind of really kind of carve out this space or this moat around kind of your game to keep people from kind of entering into that space. Because we all know once stuff starts selling off the shelves, then it, you know, people are,
Yeah,
especially the
it's
nuts off, they
copycats.
try, yeah, exactly. They try to copy it, they try to come in, and to the average consumer who's just not necessarily thinking as much and just going to the
Yeah,
store and kind of picking up a card game like, "Oh, yeah, this looks like the game I saw," throwing it in a basket. They can
exactly.
be, kind of doing that or buying someone else's brand as opposed to kinda your brand, so being able to kinda protect it, yeah, exactly. So being able to protect it is, extremely important. So it seems like you guys are doing that, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, even once you enter into like mass retail, like they have to see that you have certain certifications, IP protections. So before you can go into a Walmart or a Target or Costco, they're looking for that. They want to make sure that you have that already taken care of because they don't want to have to deal with, oh, this actually was a copycat and this wasn't the original. You know, they don't want to have to deal with any of those legal implications. So even if you're thinking about taking your product into mass retail, those are things you're going to have to get checked off, you know,
And
right.
and and that's interesting, which I hadn't thought about, because you see a lot of, so many people selling on e-commerce platforms such as Amazon and eBay. But yeah, that makes total sense. If, if you're dealing with Target or Sam's Club or Costco, they want to see that you are the original IP owner, copyright owner, whatever the case may be, because they don't want to be kind of doing business with somebody who's selling a knockoff product. Now they're opening themselves up to liability, which, like
Right.
I said, I hadn't thought about, but that kind of makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
How was it getting into, like, that has to be a big thing to say, okay, I can go to a Target or a Costco or whatever and see something that I created for sale there. How was that kind of like moment for you guys?
Yeah, it was wild. So it all started like the end of 2021. We had a buyer from Macy's send a DM because they had seen us on Instagram and thought this would be really fun. We're doing a gift like section at a few Macy stores, and we think this would be really fun to add to the gift section. And we're like, wait, is this real? Like someone DM'd us. Like that's so crazy, you know? And you just never know where people are gonna find you and see you and connect with you. And so sure enough, it was real. We ended up being in about 35, I think, Macy stores, including a flagship Macy store here in New York City, and got to see our game in the flagship store, Herald Square. Like that was very, very exciting. And that basically led to us getting into Target. So that buyer reached out to a former colleague who is now at Target and said, hey, we just got this game at Macy's. It's doing great. We think you should take a look. And so we talked to them. It took about a year of kind of like preparing for entry into Target because, you know, they have a lot more stores. They have, you know, a whole different distribution system than Macy's. So we had to kind of take some time, get prepared, get ready. But once we were ready, they were ready for us. And we were so excited to be able to get into Target. That was like a dream. Like when we were in COVID, thinking of what could this be? What could this look like? You know, Target was a huge deal for us. And that was amazing once we were launched.
Oh, and I mean, that's you're talking about a story, to be able to kind of go from something like you said, thinking about this in COVID and seeing, okay, how big can this be? And all of a sudden you're in Target, what, maybe a couple years later?
Yeah, a few years after that. Crazy.
Hey, I don't know. That's, entrepreneurship, America. I don't know, the American dream, whatever you want to call it. That's amazing. And I guess even more amazing about this is it's not like you guys had to spend a ton of money to get going. I think just kind of from
Yeah.
the Shark Tank, which we'll get off into next. It seems like you guys only spent like $10,000 to kind of
Yeah.
get this whole business off the ground.
Totally. Yeah, we put in, well, I didn't put in any money. Mine, like I said, on Shark Tank, mine was a sweat
Sweat equity.
equity.
Sweat equity.
I had the time, so I was like, okay, I'll put everything together. And then my brother Brandon and Jane, they put in from their savings,
Yep.
and we got all of kind of those initial startup things together. And then what we did is we opened a pre-order, And that was like the next level of cash that we needed to kind of continue to build and grow. And then we basically got Macy's like later that year. So we were like, okay, we have a PO now, so we can use that PO to finance inventory for that. So it was just kind of like you keep slowly growing, you take little pieces here and there, you put it all together so that you can keep moving forward. And that's essentially what we did until we were finally like at a proper revenue place, you know.
Nice, nice. So then again, we talk about the Macy's opportunity. We talk about the Target opportunity. How did the Shark Tank opportunity come about? Did one of the producers jump in the DMs on that, or how?
That does happen to folks. It didn't
Yeah,
happen to
right.
me,
Yeah, for
but it
sure.
does happen. So take a look at your DMs, folks. That's the moral of the story here. So for Shark Tank, so I'm a part of a group called New Voices, which is basically Black women founders. And it's just like a community where we all kind of support each other, we share resources, etc. They also give out grants, and it's been amazing to work with them. They bring in like cool webinars, people who are either founders or retailers, etc. And they brought in a casting agent who works on Shark Tank, and he did a webinar with us to say, hey, this is what you need to know about applying. This is the process. This is what we look for, etc. So I reached out to him right away while the webinar was going on. I found him on LinkedIn and I was like, hey, I'm in your webinar. This has been amazing. I've always wanted to do Shark Tank, but you made me feel so empowered. I really appreciate what you shared. You know, I want to apply. And he was like, oh my gosh. He sent me a message right away, like, thank you for attending. Like, please let me know if you apply. You know, let me know once you put in the application online, and I'll try to flag you if I can. I was like, amazing, like, wow, thank you. So I just sent a regular application on the website, and sure enough, maybe 2 weeks later, I get a message from their casting team, like, we want to have a call with you. It was just a regular phone call. I was so nervous. So we do a phone call, and immediately they're like, okay, yeah, this is great. We're going to put you through the process. Now, the process is a long process. It's like a few months long where you're being vetted and, you know, you go through diligence and all of that. But that was kind of the start of that. So it was just me kind of having the opportunity to have, you know, a webinar from someone from casting by being a part of a community, and then going the extra step, reaching out and be like, hey, keep an eye out for me.
Right.
So it worked out.
Right. And again, that's to seem like that's kind of part of that grind as far as a kind of being able to kind of take those extra steps that maybe most people won't do to kind of put yourself out there, which obviously you did, and it succeeded big time in this regard. So then I guess you get the approval. Hey, I'm going to be on Shark Tank. And again, it seems like Jane and your brother, they're like, hey, you know, good luck with that. Go make this look good, because I'm getting to see them at all during the pitch. So how were you nervous in a tank? It seems like kind of things obviously worked out well, but kind of going into it, were you nervous? Did you kind of have some sharks in mind in terms of who you wanted to potentially do a deal with? Can you kind of talk a little bit about kind of that day of kind of actually pitching and going through that process?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a long day where you basically they shoot in LA. So you go over to LA, you're there for like 2 days essentially. You're there on set at like 6 a.m. and you're kind of hanging out backstage with a few of the other founders who are also pitching that day. And so everyone's nervous, everyone's kind of like checking in, like, oh my gosh, you know, like congrats. But you don't know when you're going to pitch, right? So you're kind of just you have to stay on. You have to be ready. And your pitch, you've been working on this for months. So hopefully you know it. And, you know, it's only about a minute and a half to do your actual initial pitch. So hopefully you are very memorized, off book, as we say in theater. You're energized. You know, you just have to make sure you stay on. And the other big thing, obviously, is knowing all of your numbers. Like that's the conversation that comes after, where people get really messed up, is they're asking you a billion questions all at once, just how it looks on the show. And you have to be able to say, yes, yes, this, that, boom, boom. Like you have to keep them organized and make sure that you can still take charge of the room because this is your chance to tell your story and to like showcase your company. So you don't want to let them take over, right? You want to be able to still have agency over the space, answer all their questions, but make sure you tell the story that you want to tell. So that was the biggest thing. And I had to practice that a lot, like a lot. I would go through mock sessions with my co-founders, with my husband. I watched a billion episodes. I watched interviews with the sharks just to see like what things that they look for, you know, what companies they like to invest in, what type of people, you know, they get excited about, just to have context of all of the things. Because I find it helpful for me to prepare when I know all of the possibilities, essentially. So it wasn't so much, of course, I was like nervous just because I was excited, but I think it was more so, you know, this is life. They're not, you don't get a do-over. They you, if you mess up your words, then you take a breath and you just keep going, because we're not cutting. You don't get to say, excuse me, can we start over? There's none of that. You just have to push through. So that was my biggest thing, is I just wanted to have a good presentation. I wanted to feel confident about what I did, and I wanted to leave with the deal. So
Right.
I did it.
So then, because again, it seems like just watching the episode, like maybe the Sharks were a little bit unsure, which they always seem to be, and maybe that's from just an editing standpoint early on in the process. But once you start to kind of hammer out those numbers, hey, I'm sold 50,000 units of these things. I'm, right, 24 looking to make 600 grand. It's like, okay, now the ears perk up, and it's like, okay, you got my attention. Right. I think it was like almost like a bidding war at that point. Did you, I guess, kind of have an idea of who you maybe wanted to do a deal with, or was it like, no, I'm just here to get a deal regardless of who that is with?
I mean, I was definitely open. I think Lori was definitely on the top of our list because she's always like the product person. Like she has gotten a ton of product into major retailers. So she was at the top of our list. Of course, everyone always looks at Mark. You know, Mark is always like one of the top folks. So we're always looking to see, okay, is Mark going to be interested? And then even Damon, like I really admire Damon's story and his journey as well. So it was always kind of, I know he typically doesn't invest in family owned businesses. That's something he's talked about a lot. Yeah. But I was like, oh, I really like his story and like what he's built and like what he brings to his community. And then Robert, I didn't think Robert would be interested because I know he's more of like a tech person.
Yeah.
He typically does more, you know, the cloud, the securities, the technical aspects of companies. So I didn't think he would be that interested in it. But I always respected him. He always seemed like such a nice person, like on the show. He's always the like smiley, like, I really love what you're doing, like encouraging folks. But I didn't think our business would be something he'd be interested in at first. So when he kind of like stopped and like told that whole story about his friend and like missing out on that opportunity years ago and always waiting for the perfect opportunity to come back around where he can finally be in the game industry with the right partners, that hit home. And I was like, oh, he is into this. He's passionate about this. And I think he gets it in a different way. And for him to just offer exactly what we asked is crazy. Like that doesn't happen.
For sure. No, definitely. I mean, for me, just looking at it, I'm not sure how you felt about this at this point in time, but I didn't realize that, like you said, telling the story about his friends and they each maybe walking away with like $10 million or something. It was like a crazy number. Was that something that kind of gave you like, oh wow, this thing can be something huge to the point where, to the extent if we do kind of decide to having an exit, we can make a lot of money.
I mean, I already knew that. I already knew it could be something big for sure. Like I've looked at other, games. There's Cards Against Humanity. There's so many games that are doing huge numbers that people, have no clue, no idea, but they're huge games doing big numbers. And it was great to see that he knew where it could go. He saw the growth opportunity, and he, like, even some of the questions he was asking, like some of it they cut out of the episode, but I just felt like he was clicking with it. Like during the whole interview process, he just was like, oh, and then you could do that. And I was like, exactly. He's like, oh, and then you could do that. And I was like, yes. Like he just was getting it and was excited about it. And then he connected with that story. And I was like, okay, this just makes sense.
Yeah, this is our guy. This is our guy.
Yeah.
And that's sweet. That's sweet. So then I guess maybe, and I always like to ask the guests this because again we talked about it. Entrepreneurship, like you said, it's not for everybody, but at the same time, and you have the ups and the downs of it. So kind of with you guys going through the process, what would you say was kind of the biggest challenge that you? And it's a two-part question. What would you say is the biggest challenge that you guys had to overcome? And then what was the kind of the biggest breakthrough for you guys? And I guess the answer to that can be the same thing for both of them. But it's always interesting to try to get kind of your take on the biggest challenge that you guys had to overcome and kind of up to this point with the business. But then also on the flip side of that, the biggest breakthrough, whether it was getting in Target or that Macy's DM or whatever the case may be, that kind of really took and propelled the business to the next level.
Yeah. I mean, early on, like you said, we are a COVID business. And obviously, being in COVID was so helpful in so many ways because we had that time to really spend. But we didn't know about, the shipping, manufacturing part of it
Yeah.
at the time, which pretty much everyone who's in games and toys, and I guess every industry, they manufacture in China. That's where the factories are. And at that time, China was going through like a zero COVID policy. So you get one case, the country is shutting down. That means the factories are closing. That means the ports are closing. Everything is just shut down. And we ended up selling out of our product and we couldn't get a restock for over 6 months. And it was so stressful because we didn't have
Ah,
revenue coming in and we just kind of felt like stuck. So we're like, you had no clue of like when it was all going to kind of work out. When are they going to be able to finish manufacturing? When are we going to be able to get it scheduled to get on a boat to come to the US? The ports were also backed up. There was, I don't know if people remember, but like there was all these issues with the canals and it was a hot mess. And we didn't know, anything about it in general. And so we were trying to navigate learning about manufacturing and shipping while also dealing with all of these global issues that were
yeah.
happening. And it kind of feels like we're like back there now, which is crazy with all of the tariff issues going on because now we're trying to figure out the best way to pivot and see if there's other manufacturing options anywhere else on the globe, which has
Yeah.
been really stressful for us because everyone in our industry, like I said, we all manufacture in China. And so the tariffs have been so hard and so stressful to figure out because typically we would manufacture in June and get product in July. And without knowing what the tariff fees are going to be, like 150% is where it's at right now. And who can do that? No one, like that's crazy. So we're kind of currently going through like a repeat of those kind of global shipping challenges throughout, with the tariffs happening at this point. So that would be the biggest challenge I would say right now. And then in terms of a breakthrough, I mean, I think I do think it was getting into Target. I do think that was like the initial, like, wow, mind blowing
Yeah.
moment to say this was like a huge goal for us. And we actually did it. And our product is actually on shelves all around the United States. Like, that is crazy. And it's
We
still,
are here. No, yeah, that man, that's like I said, that's huge. Let me ask you with the going kind of back to the I know a lot of people want to try to manufacture here in the US, but whether it's for a number of reasons, it may not just be possible. I think somebody I was interviewing said that the equipment for that particular product that they were selling was not even here in the US to the point where they could get it manufactured in the US. So is that kind of something like you said in your area, everybody just manufactures in China. That's kind of where it is.
yeah.
But is it kind of one of those things where maybe whether it's due to the cost or maybe due to the equipment that's just not possible here in the U.S. or I guess maybe have you tried to look into that at all out of curiosity?
Yeah. I mean, years ago, we tried to look at the United States as an option just during COVID because we were having issues with that. So we were like, okay, well, maybe we can find something here. Let's see. We found one factory that's very small and it was going to take 3 times the time to actually manufacture our product. And it was going to be about 20x the cost. So,
Really?
yeah. So we were quickly scrapped that.
Sure. Sure,
It
yeah,
was
that's
not, it did not make sense. We were like, I'd rather just deal with, whatever's going on with China, because it's going to be way more cost effective in the end. And it's eventually it will get better. Like
right.
eventually COVID will pass and we will have a normal manufacturing schedule. The factory in the US will always take 3 months to get things done and always cost 20x the price. So it's just not feasible. I think there's two things. There's just not enough machinery to handle it. Like
And
I know it's just paper for us, it's card stock, but you need huge machinery to print thousands and
yeah,
thousands of units all within, back to back to back. And then you also need labor, you need people who can construct the box. Like this gets printed flat on a piece of cardstock, and then you have to be able to put it together and construct it into this one
mhm,
piece. So it takes a lot of those things that we just don't have. We don't have the people that we can pay to do the labor. We don't have the machinery. And then we don't have the materials like the cardstock, the ink, the paper. That also comes from abroad. So getting that, bringing it into the US, that's still going to be costly. So it's just a tough situation that a lot of us are in right now and trying to figure out the best way forward, hoping for the best, hoping this gets resolved quickly because like we can't eat those tariff costs as a
right.
company. We're currently still bootstrapped. We're obviously waiting on our deal,
Yep.
but we're a bootstrapped small business. We're trying to make it work the best we can, but that is a huge, huge cost for someone like us to be able to just cover.
No, for sure. No, I completely understand that, man. It seems like it's an interesting thing between the US and China, whether it's manufacturing. I know kind of China is not doesn't always play nice by the rules with regard to IP and the copycats that kind of come out of there. So it's interesting situation between us and China that hopefully gets kind of worked out for the better
Yeah,
sooner rather than later, as you
I
mentioned.
hope so. Fingers crossed.
Right, 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 right. Oh, there's just a few more questions for you before we wrap up here. I guess again, you have to the flagship card game being hella awkward, but then you have to build a bay. You're doing different things. Is it kind of plans for even more expansion, whether it's kind of more card games or maybe board games, and kind of you having just a number of products that kind of people can buy? Is that kind of in the cards going forward for even more? I'm asking this question when you guys just kind of launched another card game recently with Build a Bay, but just kind of going forward, looking, projecting years down the line. Is it still plans to expand with more product, maybe outside of even the card game space that you guys talk about amongst each other? Did I lose you?
Are we
Okay,
back now?
yeah. Okay, there you go. I'm sorry. It looks like I lost you for a second there.
Sorry, I think so. I think my internet it was going crazy for a second. Um, but yeah, so yes, we are working on new products. So obviously we just launched our new game, Build a Bay, and we will be working on expansion packs. So for Hella Awkward, we have 4 categories: real talk, dating, sex, and relationships within the game. We currently have a real talk expansion pack. So there's 45 additional questions for that category. We're going to expand those other categories as well. So we'll have a bunch of new, fresh questions that people can buy and add to their game. And then we have some other new games that we'll be working on for next year that will be fun, exciting, party, social games for people to play and connect.
Nice. Nice. No, that's sweet. That's sweet. Yeah, it's always kind of one of those things that I think about with the card games because it seems like just looking on the outside in, it could be a situation where uh it's like, okay, a hot thing for a time period, and then maybe, okay, it's like what's next after a while. But it seems like you guys are trying to provide for that or
Yeah,
accounting for that with kind of fresh questions, kind of different games, different. So it seems like you guys are kind of, have that in mind to kind of keep things fresh and new
exactly.
for the customer.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, we evolved as people too. We grow. And so our lives change. So we want to always share whatever we're going through. This is how it all started. It was our own conversations.
For sure.
So as we grow and evolve and have new experiences, we want to continue to share that with our community. And I think
Right,
that's
right.
the fun part.
Exactly. No, and again, I think this is definitely very much needed, especially as we are getting more away from kind of being able to interact with each other with AI and all this, electronics and
Right.
just technology. It seems like kind of being able to sit down amongst friends and family and have a good laugh and talk to each other, even though it may be awkward, and ask those awkward questions. This seems like the time to kind of really kind of get that bonding time in that we seems like don't really get anymore, given kind of technology and kind of what has come from it. So then, just two final questions. Number one, what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur? Somebody who's maybe kind of looking to get off into the game, they probably doing their double dutch. It's like, okay, do I do it? Do I get off into it? Do I not get off into it? And obviously yourself being in a theater and or coming from the theater world into entrepreneurship, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of stuff that you had to learn on the fly or kind of being in a fire. So what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur as they're kind of looking to kind of have the success that you've had and kind of just be an entrepreneur with their product or their service that they're providing?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say, this is what I always tell people, is start small and start now. Those are the two things.
I like that.
Start small, start now. Make it so that it is very attainable for you on a day-to-day basis. Do small, small tasks that help you kind of slowly build over time, but do it today. like, like right now. Let's start right now. And don't be afraid to tell people. Like, I know, like, I may be very fortunate. I have great people in my life that I have curated from college, from family, from my friends in New York, from colleagues, but I would definitely lean into your community as much as possible. Get help from folks, ask for people to try stuff, to test stuff. If you're making hair care products in your kitchen, put a little pack together and have your neighbor try it. Like, hey, knock on their door. Hey, I'm making this hair pomade. I'd love for you to try it out. This is what's in it. Just start small and start today. And then you can grow and build and learn over time. I think a lot of people get trapped in wanting things to be perfect and wanting it to be the absolute best reflection of what they dream it to be. They want it to be the 10-year out version today. And like, that's just not going to happen, but you can get there. But in order to get there, you have to start now. So that's always my biggest advice, is just put it out there, start getting, like you were saying, get feedback from people early and just try. You'll change, things will iterate, you will shift. And that is all fine and exciting. Just enjoy that journey, enjoy that process, because it's fun.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
fun to be creative. It's fun to share what you're excited about with people. People love people who are passionate about things. So
No,
share.
and I love that because I'm a big proponent of kind of building it as you're flying it, and I don't know, maybe just kind of my personality type. I don't need things to be perfect before getting started. I'll kind of do it or get started, and then knowing that, like you said, I'm gonna iterate kind of
Yeah.
throughout. But it seems like a fair amount of people kind of want or feel like they need everything to be perfect, which is seems like it's never going to be perfect. And if you're waiting for things to be perfect, you'll probably never start. So I mean,
Exactly.
I love that advice. And then I guess the last question and maybe the most important: how can people follow you, follow Awkward Games? And I know we talked about Awkward Games being in Target and some of the big box retailers, but to the
Yes.
extent that people want to get it maybe from online, how can people get actually the card games, Hella Awkward, Build a Bay, and just kind of look out for what you guys have on the horizon?
Absolutely. Yeah, you all can find our games on our website, awkwardgames.com. Come on and find us and shop with us personally. I also have a fun blog where I share fun, awkward conversations and topics, so you can come chime in. And then, of course, we're on Amazon. We are at Target, we're at Walmart, and then a slew of small shops. So if you are a boutique owner, you can find us on Fair if you want to have our games in your store. And then you can find us on social. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok. You can find us at Hella Awkward Cards and come hang out. I'm in the DMs. Like I said, lots of things go down in the DMs. So send me a message, say hi, let me know how you enjoy playing, and I'll be ready to hang out and chat with you.
Oh, for sure. I think I maybe hit you up on all the DMs,
Yes,
Facebook, IG, email, but that's kind of how I roll. You're gonna get one of them.
absolutely.
Some
I love
people take IG better than Facebook and vice versa. And so, yeah, I hit them all and
that.
see where the cars lie at that point, plain and simple.
Exactly. And we connected, and I appreciate that.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So, audience members, hey, Brittany, she gave a lot of game here. Definitely go try out the product. I'm definitely going to get one because I think this is going to be it's going to be pretty good when I go to my buddy's house for different holiday events and functions that he throws and playing the games. I think we will all enjoy it. So I'm going to pick up me game for myself. But definitely go check it out. Definitely go purchase the game. I think the Build a Bay is going to be a rocket ship. I'm interested in seeing what that's all about. And then again, a lot of great stories, a lot of great insight as to entrepreneurship and kind of different things to be on the lookout for, or at least consider as you're going through the process. So hopefully you guys had the pen and the papers out taking notes. If not, you may have to rewatch it and kind of make sure you're taking notes to see what's applicable to you guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.